about to talk about hospitality. And I know I've always loved that we call our theaters houses and that we say to each other, how's the house tonight? And that can mean so many things. It can mean how many people are in the house? How does the house feel tonight? How is the audience responding? Did anything catastrophic happen? You know, how's the house? So I'm really excited to introduce our next speaker, who's going to help us understand how we can make our houses feel more like home. David Steffen is a client advisor at Hospitality Quotient. It's a learning and consulting business from Danny Meyer's Union Square Hospitality Group in New York. Prior to Hospitality Quotient, David was the director of marketing and sales promotion for Roundabout Theatre Company, so he knows our field well. Please join me in welcoming David Steffen to the stage. Take it away.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Teresa. I'm going to try not to take an awkward sip of my water during my presentation. Whoa. What I want to do is start at the very first slide, so please forgive me. It's theater, right? Things go wrong. Sometimes you just have to start from scratch. There. All right. Hospitality Quotient. As Teresa said, my name is David Steffen. I'm going to move around a lot, and I'm probably going to come down into the audience and make you participate because I've had a lot of caffeine. No banjo, though, which oh man, I love that banjo so much. So, Hospitality Quotient is a learning and consulting business, as Teresa said. And what we do is we work with a variety of different organizations to help them think differently and be more purposeful about their guest experience. And we like to teach them that guest experience is a way that they can differentiate their business from their competition or all of the other competition out there. 3 years ago, I went to a workshop at Hospitality Quotient. At the time, I was the marketing director at Roundabout Theatre Company. And I was asking myself a few questions about how we could be more purposeful about the guest experience at Roundabout. As a marketing person, you tend to focus on the things you can control. So in my position, I wasn't in the position of sort of putting the shows up. I couldn't control the art that was on the stage, but I could really look at everything that was surrounding the main event and do a better job at it, quite frankly. We had spent a lot of time devoting resources to technology that was allowing us to communicate in a very targeted way to thousands of theater goers. But as the company grew and we acquired more theaters, I was noticing that sometimes there was an inconsistency in the experience. And that led me to Danny Meyer. Just by show of hands, do people know who Danny Meyer is in this group? Okay, so I'm not starting from scratch with everyone. That's great. Danny Meyer is a noted restaurateur in the city, and he has a portfolio of restaurants ranging from fine dining, Gramercy Tavern, to Shake Shack, which is right here in Philadelphia, a fast food concept, so a wide range of restaurants. So a little background on Danny. Danny also wrote a book called Setting the Table. Has anyone ever read that book? A few. I recommend it. It's sort of what got me hooked. Anyway, back to the workshop that I attended. Asking myself these questions, you know, how did this company do it? How did this company sort of create this consistent, warm, welcoming feeling of hospitality across all of these different business units? What was the magic? So that was really how what I was asking myself when I went in. And as I sat during the session, frankly, all of the concepts and ideas, and some of which I'll share with you today, were really things that I learned in third grade. These were sort of, you know, be kind to others, do unto others as they do unto you. You know, all of this stuff is stuff that we all know intuitively as human beings. It's just inbred in us. It's taught to us by our teachers and our parents. But what struck me and surprised me about that session was the language and tools and the systems that this company was able to institute to build a culture of hospitality. So the material for me resonated personally. It helped me truly, and I know it sounds corny, but it helped me become a better person. But then also I saw the value as a marketing director. I saw that I could think differently I could adapt a different mindset when I was thinking about the guest experience at Roundabout. And I'm going to use the word guest a lot because for us in our business, in the hospitality business, guest implies a host. And you're absolutely right. You know, when you have houses, you're welcoming people into your home. And if you think about it, the restaurant business and the theater business are not dissimilar. There are many, many similarities to both. So what surprised me was this methodology and this philosophy. And I'm going to share some of that with you today. So the big question, and I'm going to leave the stage because I feel like I'm going to fall off of it because I move around a lot. Can everybody see me and hear me? Is this okay? All right, so what is hospitality? When you think of hospitality, this is the audience participation part. You'll be good at this because I know theater people, once they start talking, they never stop. So when you think about hospitality, what words come to mind? Just quickly, you can yell them out. Coffee, great word. I've had way too much of it this morning. Hosting, what else? Greeting? Food, what else? Comfort, welcome. Friendliness, right. All of these things really are things that we experience when we invite people into our home. Okay, hospitality is not about being a cheerleader, right? It's not like, hey, you know, with pom-poms, that greeting you might get at a fast food restaurant. It's not about being plastic, right? It's not, hi, bye-bye, welcome, hello, bye-bye, bye. That's not what hospitality is about. Hospitality is about authenticity, right? And we know the difference immediately. When someone is not being genuine or real, we know it in a split second. Think about a dinner party. So you're on your way to a dinner party and you're approaching the door and you hear the couple who's throwing the dinner party arguing behind the door, right? Ding dong, you open the door, big smiles, you know, maybe a dry tear stain, right? Welcome, welcome, come. You feel that tension immediately and you're just sort of wandering around knowing that this couple is at each other's throat and offering you warm, friendly hospitality. So we like to start every program, the hospitality economy, very important. This is something that's in Danny's book. And I realized that this is theater, we're producing art here. This isn't Diet Coke. We're not producing widgets or some sort of snack food. But it's important, the concept here is important because it's really no longer enough. You know, think about your expectations as a consumer. It's no longer enough to have a great product or service because that's really our basic expectation. When we buy something, when we interact with the product, we expect it to be great, right? That's the baseline, okay? And everything that's wrapped around it is just the icing on the cake. So important to think about that. This is the poem that we like to use when we start every single program we do at HQ. It was delivered by Maya Angelou in an interview, actually, with Oprah Winfrey on the occasion of her 70th birthday. And in it, she says, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they will never forget the way you made them feel. Right? True, simple, genuine statement. Right? Think about that feeling. That's really the root of everything that I'm going to talk about today. It's the root of that culture of hospitality. I think about my grade school teachers, right? And the feeling, I don't know why, but do you remember the names of your grade school teachers? Right? Like 1st through 6th? Mrs. Vervin, Mr. Haas, Mrs. Relier, Mrs. Finkelday. I think I know why I remember that name. But anyway, you remember the names, you remember the feeling, positive or negative, right? That they evoked in that classroom. Why do we remember that feeling? Why? That's rhetorical. You don't have to answer that question. But it's important to sort of clue yourself into that feeling. So that feeling runs through all of these business units at Union Square Hospitality Group. And this is what I wanted to get at as a student of Hospitality Group and now an employee of Hospitality Quotient. I wanted to understand how Danny Meyer was able to replicate this warm, welcoming, genuine feeling across all of these different types of dining experiences. So I'm not going to go through this whole timeline because it would bore you to tears, but I will just mention Union Square Cafe, which was the very first restaurant that Danny opened in 1985. Now, at the time, the restaurant climate in New York City was really characterized by this aloof quality, where it was a privilege for you to have a fine dining experience. There were velvet ropes, and it was icy and cold. Danny is a nice guy from the Midwest, St. Louis. Anyone from St. Louis? Okay, good. Yeah, welcome. One, all right. St. Louis pride. Anyway, Danny's a nice guy. And he said to himself, whoever wrote the rule that you can't have a fine dining experience and have it feel warm and welcoming and genuine, right? This was revolutionary in New York City at that time. He was also thinking about the community. This is sort of another piece of his thinking. Union Square at that time was a scary, dangerous place. But he knew that a restaurant is very often a hub, right, where people gather. Not unlike theater institutions or arts institutions who choose to open their doors in sometimes a sketchy neighborhood because the rent is decent, right? And you're going to attract people. And then bit by bit, businesses start to come, sometimes competing businesses, but that's okay because all boats are going to rise. So this was another sort of mandate for Danny. And at the time, all of these ideas about hospitality were really just intuitive. This was just his own philosophy, his own way of, his own vision of running a business. Nothing had been given a name yet. And naming is key here. And this is what this man is so brilliant at. And because I'm a marketing person, I see all of this through the lens of marketing because I think marketing is just giving a name to things. What Danny was able to do, incubating these ideas at Union Square Cafe, was to name very intangible behaviors and emotions and share that language with the team that he had assembled at these restaurants. And when you do that, right, as part of any culture, if you think about the components of any culture that Donna was talking about, there's the culture of celebrations that we have, right? Language is a huge part of any culture. And when you can name things, we all have a way of talking about it. And this was the beginning of this system of hospitality, and how Danny was able to replicate that across all of these different restaurants, all offering a very different dining experience. So this is the mission that ties it all together for us. This group, I guess, would be very familiar with the mission statement. In my career in the nonprofit arts, I've looked at mission statements that have been pages long. Pages. They kill me, and they usually sit in a drawer or some computer file somewhere. Never, they go into the employee packet when you get hired. What do we really do with them? The thing that I love about this mission, and that struck me after years of working in the arts, was the conciseness of it. But even still, it's a little bit long, so I'm just going to read it. Our mission is to thoroughly delight our guests with such unparalleled hospitality, service, and culinary excellence that they will rave about their experiences and have no choice but to return. So what words stick out for you there? Delight. What else? Rave. Yes. Rave review. What else? Unparalleled. No choice. Right. The great thing about this mission is that it really is clear. It tells you what we want to do, how we're going to do it, and what we want the outcome to be. And the difference here is, I think for arts institutions, our mission statements push externally. And there are very good reasons to do that. We need to tell certain communities about the value of the work that we produce. But what about the people working in the building? What about the employees? What are they supposed to do? And this is exactly what Donna was talking about. Connecting every single employee to that mission so that everyone knows that why they're at work that day. So if you were to go to one of our restaurants and ask someone if they could recite this mission, I could guarantee you that they would not be able to do it. So we shortened it. We shortened it to creating Raves. So every single employee at Union Square Hospitality Group, and there are now close to 1,000, understands or has some version of creating Raves in their head. My job every day is to create a rave. My job every day, is to create a rave. every day, or do my best. That's the goal, right? That's the gold standard. So in a restaurant setting, if I'm setting up for service, right, and I've got my tablecloth out and the restaurant's not quite open yet, and I notice a stain on the tablecloth, am I going to move the salt shaker to just cover that stain? No. I'm going to change the tablecloth because it won't create a rave. If somebody sees that stain, they're not going to rave. That's what they're going to remember, right? If someone goes to a theater performance, they could have a lovely evening. They could just love what they're seeing on the stage. But as they leave, they're going to make a pit stop into the restroom. If that restroom is dirty, that's it, right? That's what they're going to take away from that experience. So creating raves for us, for Union Square Hospitality Group, that's sort of where we are. That is why I show up to work every day. And I would encourage you to think about where in your mission statement, where's the directive for every employee? Whether you're running the show, tearing tickets, scanning tickets, cleaning the bathrooms. Everyone has to have that same mission in their head. Okay. The feeling that we were talking about translates to the Zagat Guide for us. This is the restaurant industry's most important metric. And what it does is it measures food, service, and decor of our restaurants. We have 6, this is not to brag at all, honestly. We have 6 of the 50 most favorite restaurants in New York City. Does anyone want to take a guess how many restaurants there are in New York City? How many? Anybody? There are 22,000 restaurants in New York City, and that does not count pizzerias. But I can tell you that none of our restaurants rate #1 in food, service, or decor. None of them. We would love to. It's something we aspire to every day. But when you take the Zagat survey, in the back of the survey, there's a write-in question that asks you what your favorite restaurant is. And that's what this is gauging. Favorite status. Not the best food, not the best service, not the best decor. But what is your favorite? Okay? So what is a favorite? Think about your favorite. Your favorite pair of shoes, your favorite piece of electronics, your favorite food, your favorite retail store. What makes it a favorite? Now, there are going to be technical parts of that. So an iPhone, you might just love the technology. It's really cool. It does all kinds of great stuff. But chances are, if something is your favorite, there's something emotional about it. There's a feeling, right? We're back to feelings again. We're going to talk a lot about feelings. Here you go. Mm-hmm. My goal, actually, at the end of this thing is to make a lot of you cry as we're going to talk about feelings. I might cry. It'll be very awkward. Feelings, right? So that emotion, when something is a favorite, right, that emotion is really the truest expression of that brand. So when someone attaches themselves to your institution, of course, they're there because they love coming for the art, right? But think about what you're wrapping around the art and how that makes them feel, right? It's like a volume control. If you think about what we're talking about here, this feeling that we're giving people, making your institution their favorite, there's an attachment beyond what they're seeing or on the stage, what they're experiencing, okay? And if they have a great experience that night, what they saw was really enriching to them, and they also had just a wonderful, warm, welcoming experience, that just turns the volume up and makes it that much better. But let's say they didn't have a great experience. Maybe they didn't like the show. You don't like everything. But they still had this consistent, warm welcome into our home, right? That also helps mitigate that other experience. They're like, you know what, that wasn't my cup of tea, but I love coming here. These people are so lovely. That's what you want to hear from people, and that's what makes you a favorite. And there's a way to do this. It's not just an accident. It's not just about teaching your ushers to be nice, right? It's partly about that, but it goes deeper, right? It speaks to the culture of an organization. It speaks to leadership. It speaks to vision, as Donald was saying. This is an interesting statistic, and I don't have too many of these, but because I think charts can get really dull. But this particular survey asked people what fosters loyalty, and 73% said friendly employees. Duh, right? So why isn't every single company on this planet that interacts with guests, customers, patients, students, audience members, focusing on that feeling of making people feel great? It's what we want, right? We want to feel acknowledged. We want to feel welcomed into someone's home, right? Why aren't we focusing on that? Why aren't we being more purposeful about how we make that happen night after night after night? Okay. So customer service. We actually, at HQ, we don't really like that term, customer service, because we think people tend to pack a lot of information into that phrase, okay? So when you say, oh, wow, they have such great customer service, what makes it great, right? There are lots of different pieces to it. So in our company, and Danny's sort of obsessive compulsive about this stuff, is he likes to pick these things apart. What makes great customer service? So there are two distinct components here. The service piece is the technical piece, right? So if you think about, let's just take a box office person in the box office. There are technical pieces to their job that they have to go through every single night to just get things done, right? All the things on the task list. And what you want there is excellence, by the way, right? You want them to nail the technical piece of the job. In the restaurant business, it means that you're going to deliver the right food to the right table at the right time, at the right temperature. That's the technical piece of that experience. The other piece is the emotional piece. That's the hospitality piece, right? And the goal there is that you want to make that person feel like you are on their side. How often do you go into a store, you want to buy something, and you feel like every single employee in that store is somehow against you, like it's their job to prevent you from spending money? Why does that happen? I don't know. They're not focusing on this on your side piece. But what happens here is you need both, right? You need to nail the technical piece of that transaction and the hospitality piece. And what's great about this model is that you can train to both pieces independently. So if you've got somebody new coming in, the first thing you're going to do is focus on the technical piece of their job, right? You're the house manager. It's your job to get all of these people into that house on time every night. And we're going to go through the steps of how that happens. But along the way, we're going to layer on some hospitality. We want everyone coming into this house to feel like we're there for them. We acknowledge them. All right, I want you to check out this clip. Whoa, it's loud.
Yes, that necklace there, how much is it?
It's £270.
All right, I'll have it.
Lovely. Would you like it gift wrapped?
Yes, all right.
Lovely. Let me just pop it in the box. There.
Look, could we be quite quick?
Certainly, sir. Ready in the flashiest of flashes. There.
It's great.
Not quite finished.
Look, actually, I don't need a bag. I'll just put it in my pocket.
No, this isn't a bag, sir.
Really?
This is so much more than a bag.
quite quick, please.
Prontissimo.
What's that?
It's a cinnamon stick, sir.
Actually, I really can't wait.
Oh, you won't regret it, sir.
Want to bet?
'Tis but the work of a moment. There we go. Almost finished.
Almost finished. What else can there be? You're going to dip it in yogurt? Cover it with chocolate buttons?
Oh, no, sir. We're going to pop it in the Christmas box.
But I don't want a Christmas box.
But you said you wanted it gift wrapped, sir.
I did, but...
This is the final flourish.
Can I just pay?
All we need now
Oh, God.
is a sprig of holly.
No, 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 no bloody holly.
But, sir,
Leave it, just leave it.
All right. Let's break it down. All right. What's up with Mr. Bean? What's going on? He's not listening. What did he do well? Let's start there. Let's focus on the positive. What did he do well? His craft, right. Yeah, boy, did he wrap that gift. He really wrapped it. What else did he do well? He was very polite. Exactly. Yes, what else? Genuine. Yeah, he was pleasant enough. Yeah, what did you say? He was there immediately, yes. Very attentive. Right. Prompt. Any other thoughts? Yes, instructions, you could imagine how happy the gift wrapping manager may have been, you know, if he was watching him from a camera, how thrilled he would have been that he followed every single step of the process of wrapping that gift. All right, let's talk about Alan Rickman. Yes, sorry. He sure did. He went beyond the extra mile, miles and miles beyond the extra mile. All right, Alan Rickman, what was going on over there? He wanted it done quickly, right. What else? Any other thoughts about poor Alan Rickman? Yes, he wanted to get the necklace for his mistress and get the hell out of there. Yeah, right. So there was something going on with him. So here's what we think about this. So sometimes, if you think about these two pieces of this equation, you know, the technical piece can really get in the way of hospitality. And the trick is that hospitality is a one-size-fits-one proposition. It's not one-size-fits-all. It means something different to each and every one of us. We all, you know, a great experience means something different to all of us. In this case, Alan Rickman wanted to get out of there. But Mr. Bean was in what we like to call a service bubble, right? A service monologue, right? He was not interested in having a dialogue. Dialogue is the foundation for all of this, folks. Opening your mouth and starting a conversation. Like that exercise, the warm-up exercise that we did yesterday. Just getting everyone to talk to each other, right? That's the root of hospitality. Having a conversation, right? It's not rocket science. But you can see how sometimes service can get in the way, right? Hospitality should really happen for you, not to you. Okay? So it was my birthday and I was at a restaurant, right? And this service person, I guess had overheard that it was my birthday. And so I had theater tickets, right? And they thought they were going to impress me. So we were getting the check and we were sort of in a rush to get to the theater. And sure enough, out comes the champagne and the dessert. Well, I don't have time for the champagne and the dessert because I've got to get to the theater. So this is an instance where, you know, but we're trying to really cram some hospitality down your throat here. We're trying to make you happy, right? Isn't that what we're supposed to do? What would have been a good thing for that server to do? Yeah. I'm sorry? Call me a cab to the theater. That would have been great.
Invite you to come back after the show and have it.
Right. Invite me to come back. Box it up and send it. Right. Box it up. Or ask. Right. Right. Maybe they could have paid attention, not like Mr. Bean. They could have sort of seen, right? They could have clued into some body language or been listening. do you have time? Simple question, right? Would have solved it right then and there. And if I said, no, unfortunately we have theater tickets, they could have packed something up and I could have walked out and I would have been thrilled because that's the experience that I wanted in that moment, right? I really didn't want the champagne and the dessert. I didn't have time, right? So very important to think about when you think about this experience that you have with your audiences. And if you're going to be more purposeful about that experience, you really need to be thinking about building tools and skills for your team to help them read people, to help them understand that the experience is different for everyone, right? Okay. So here's the magic equation, service plus hospitality. These two things combust, right? Right? You build that relationship. That's really what we're doing when we have a dialogue with someone. Danny likes to call information dots. We have a name for everything in our company. And we actually use this language at work. I have the honor and privilege of being in this living laboratory every day where people, you know, sort of weird at first, but now I've completely drunk the Kool-Aid and I say all this stuff, which is, you know, much to the chagrin of my husband at home. He's like, stop HQing me. I'm like, Michael, if you would just name it, we'd be fine. Right. This is happening to me, not for me. Okay. All right. So here's a bit about the foundation of our business philosophy at Union Square Hospitality Group. This is our top secret, very complex business model. Please don't take any pictures of it, and do not write it down. At the top, who you hire, right? Big shock there. Tools and training and work environment. We like to think of this as a three-legged stool. You pull one out, it all comes tumbling down. So what I would encourage you to do is sort of think about your organizations. So where are you in these three different components? Very often we'll get people on the phone who'll call us at HQ and say, you know, we're really thinking about this experience that we're wrapping around what we're putting on our stages, and we'd love for you to come and train our ushers. And we say, that's great. We would love to train your ushers, but we'd really like to speak to the people who are running your theater first. And the reason we do that is that this is a leadership issue. And those leaders, as Donna said, such a great segue to this stuff. They've got to model that behavior, right? If you train your ushers and download all of this language in a way that they can speak to each other to create these experiences, and their management has no idea what they're talking about, it will all evaporate. So that's something to think about when you think about a model like this. You know, it's not only about who you hire. You know, if you're a gardener, here's the proverbial gardening metaphor, you could have a beautiful, healthy plant, right? If you plant it in toxic soil, what's going to happen? Right, wilt and die. If you don't give that beautiful plant the sun and the nutrients that it needs, it's going to leave. Well, the person would leave, the plant wouldn't leave. The plant would just wilt and die. So think about that. This is a big idea in the book, this concept of the virtuous cycle of enlightened hospitality. It's a very lofty phrase, but the idea, again, very basic, very simple. What Danny did when he was starting to name the things that he was incubating at Union Square Cafe was thinking about all the stakeholders in his business, and he came up with 5. And here's the rank order. Number 1, each other. Number 2, our guests. 3, our community. 4, our suppliers. 5, our investors. So what's so enlightened about that? Investors are last. I'm sorry?
Each other is first, not your guest.
Right. Each other is first. Right? The customer's always right. Well, you know what? They're not. They're not always right. I'm here to tell you they are not always right. And this really is revolutionary. It turns this model, the typical business model, on its head. Because at our company, we take care of each other first. And I've worked with a broad spectrum of clients, everything from investment bankers to theater people like you here. And I can tell you that this community embraces this. This is a community that really is interested in taking care of each other versus someone who might work at Goldman Sachs. Not so much of team spirit going on at Goldman Sachs. So I'm just happy to be here because I think these ideas live in this room already. So taking care of each other first is a key component. But it's also a cycle. And so how do all these stakeholders work together to build this culture of hospitality? And when we talk to our leadership team, we look at it this way. So if you take yourself, right, that's the each other piece, and you put yourself in the middle, and you take the other stakeholders and put it around, you've got these two-way streets that go back and forth to all the other stakeholders. And you could think about who the main stakeholders are in your institutions. It doesn't have to be this list, but if you put each other first, you think about those relationships, right, in a purposeful way. Make a diagram like this and say, how is that working back and forth between the two? In the restaurant business, here's a very simple example. Suppliers and each other, right? Manhattan, very busy streets, deliveries very difficult sometimes. So if I'm accepting a delivery at a restaurant and I'm going to give that driver a cold drink on a hot day, hot drink on a cold day, whatever, if I'm going to be ready for that delivery, let's fast forward to a blizzard, right? Big snowstorm in the city. This driver has two options. He can deliver to me or he can deliver to the restaurant down the street. Who's he going to go to? Right, he's going to go to me, right? So that back and forth, right, between you, taking care of each other, all your stakeholders, very key to build those relationships. All right, a little more language for you. If you think about the top of the triangle, right, the who you hire piece, we have a name for the kinds of people that we like to hire to come and work at our company, and they're called 51%ers. Okay, we're talking about a whole person, by the way, not just slightly more than half a person. So 49% of that person represents their technical capabilities, right? And again, this maps on to that model of service and hospitality. So be thinking about that as we look at this. So 49% technical capabilities. The 51% is the emotional piece, right? So what we're really looking at here is the technical piece, 49, what you do when you're doing your job, and who you are when you're doing your job, right? Who you are when you're doing your job. That's what this is about, folks. Why do you think we put a little more emphasis on the 51% side, on the emotional side?
It's hard to teach it.
Right. It's hard to teach someone to care, right? So if you're looking at two candidates, let's say, this is a great model for you to think about. And we're going to get to a Q&A later, and we can talk more about this, because I know this brings up a lot of questions. Because, you know, what if I don't have 51%ers working with me right now? What do I do? That's a great question. But just important to think about, for us anyway, the type of person who is able to deliver this warm, genuine experience. And we've defined characteristics of that person. And there are 5 of them. Warm and friendly character. Well, that's sort of obvious, right? You know, this is the first impression piece. When you meet someone and they make eye contact and they're open, that's just something you know, a little dot of information that you take on. You're immediately at ease with that person. And that happens in a split second. We get that warm and, oops, sorry about that. We get that warm and friendly piece. Curious intelligence. Why not just intelligence? Right. Mm-hmm. Yes, so what Corey said was that intelligence can feel cold and academic, but the curious piece, right, that sort of implies an action, right? There's more going on. I'm not just interested in my job, I'm really interested in how I fit into the whole puzzle, right? That's what I'm looking for. What about caring empathy? We also like qualifiers. It's very hard for us to just put one word out there. We like to qualify everything. Well, first of all, what is empathy? Who can give me a good definition of empathy?
Putting yourself in someone else's shoes.
Exactly, right. Putting yourself in someone else's shoes. So when I use that word caring empathy, what does that mean?
Put yourself in their shoes, that doesn't mean you have to care about what they think.
Exactly. It's true. It's true. Right. You can empathize and, not really care or not have any perspective on that certain situation. I always like to think of it as, if I'm in the subway in New York City and someone falls down the stairs, I could look at them and go, wow, that really sucks for you, and just keep walking, right? But if I care, I might help them up, right? Okay. Strong work ethic. What does that mean to you? I love this question. Doing the job till it gets done. Keep going. Yes. What else?
Erring on the side of doing more than you need.
Yes. Above and beyond. Exactly. Finding joy in work. I love that. I love that. Let's find joy in our work. What else? Take ownership. What else? From the back of the room. Make it happen. Absolutely. This is a community, I think, that strong work ethic is never an issue because the resources are limited, and it's sort of an all hands on deck kind of world that we live in here, I think. I think all of us understand what that means. At our company, we like to think of it as a willingness to go above and beyond and an athleticism, right? Pivoting on a dime, right? Just rolling with it, rolling with the punches. And then finally, the last two, actually, self-awareness. What is self-awareness? Understanding your role.
Knowing your strengths and your limits.
Yes, strengths and limits. Yes, knowing how you impact other people, knowing how your behavior impacts people on your team, your colleagues, the other patrons. Self-awareness is huge, particularly among leaders, right? It's sort of knowing your own personal weather report. And again, naming it with your team. So, this notion of never bringing your personal life to work, I don't buy it. I think we all, we don't just leave it at home. It's hard to do that sometimes. But having that comfort level to know that today might not be your best day, right? And letting people know so that they don't think it's them, right? Very key to building this culture of hospitality that we're talking about. And then lastly, integrity. What is integrity? Honest and honorable. Exactly, yes. Yes, I love, that's my favorite definition. You read my mind, thank you. Did everyone hear that?
Doing what's right, even when no one is looking.
Exactly. I would write that one. Is that going to make the board? I love that definition of integrity. So again, thinking about the type of people that are capable of delivering hospitality is key. That's the top piece of that triangle. And how am I doing? Am I all right? Am I good? 4 minutes. Okay, thank you. This is my time. I love that there's a timekeeper, even though I had to ask him, so now I've blown your cover, but I love, that was a very hospitable thing to do, by the way, TCG. That was very on my side, supplying a timekeeper, because I tend to just blab on without, thank you. All right. What I want to do now is focus just a little bit on the work environment piece, because as I said before, we get calls from clients who want us to train their frontline staff, but we really try and dial that back when we can and get the leadership of an organization galvanized behind a hospitality initiative, really, right? To really think about this experience, an experience that can be just as impactful as what's happening on the stage or wherever your art is happening. So the work environment piece is critical. And when you think about work environment, I'll share two extremes with you. Here they are. Fear and trust. What does a fearful work environment look like, feel like? What is, A lot of screaming, a lot of passionate screaming. Yeah.
Like a sense of uncertainty.
A sense of uncertainty, yes, yeah. Intimidation. Back channel, covering your ass, right? Right? Yeah, what else?
Inability to take risks.
Inability to take risks, right. So it's not just sort of what it feels like, but what the outcomes are, right? Like what do these environments produce? Yes?
It's demoralizing, and you end up not being willing to go above and beyond because there's no reward for that. There's
Right.
you go through what you're told to live within the confines of your job and nothing else.
Wow, that was a very detailed explanation of fearful work environment. Did everyone hear that? I mean, essentially stunting growth, stunting creativity, stunting innovation. Yes, in the back. I'm sorry?
Very tense.
Tense, right. Other things to add to that list: poor communication, indecision, no creativity, poor morale, no one is confident. High turnover is another outcome of a fearful environment, right? Nobody wants to be there. Absenteeism, right? Okay, so let's leave the dark side, and go to trust. Let's go into the light. What does a trustful work environment look like, feel like? What would an outcome be of that type of environment? Yes. Creative, right? Collaborative, yes. Fun, right. Let's have fun. Laughter. What else? Dynamic, yes.
Empowering people at the lowest rungs to have a say in the organization.
Right, empowering your team. Key, very important, right? Especially if we're talking about hospitality. I'm just going to talk because you said that, I have to talk for 2 seconds about that. Empowering your team. So we talk about that frontline staff, right? If you're working in an environment of trust, okay, you've got to trust and empower that frontline staff to solve some of the problems that they encounter, right? We're talking about the face-to-face interaction of hospitality right now and that dialogue, because very often this is where a lot of the problems present themselves. Very often, if you are working in a fearful environment and you're a frontline employee, you might not know what you're able to do or not to do, right? So you're going to be what we call at our business, more language for you, a gatekeeper, right? Gatekeepers say no, right? They might say no just because that's sort of who they are inherently, someone who just is about no and the negative, but they might be a frontline person who's not empowered to say yes, or at least know what the boundaries are. We call those boundaries riverbanks, right? So you're going to have rules and policies that are the riverbanks, and you want to empower that frontline employee to say, you know what, you can swim anywhere within these riverbanks to solve that problem, right? So you don't have to be a gatekeeper anymore. You can be an agent. An agent is someone who delivers hospitality. An agent is going to find creative solutions, right? And get the job done and try their best to deliver the experience that that guest wants. Okay? Just one more thing about agents and gatekeepers. Both can say no. Okay? The difference is the intent. An agent intends to help you. A gatekeeper does not. Right? So in an environment of trust, you've got a bunch of agents, right, who've been empowered, right? There's a buzz going on, they're going to work together, and there's a house pride. There's a team pride in that environment. All right. I'm going to leave you with a very short story, then we're going to do Q&A. Just in the context of a culture of hospitality. I live on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and down in our lobby, a very sort of crotchety, grumpy old woman stations herself there every morning to, I think, just be mean and miserable to everyone who's on their way to work or whatever it is that they're doing. And so Her name is Gladys. And she, of course, her name is really Gladys. I'm not even making it up. And she really doesn't acknowledge me. And so I literally walk by this woman for every day. And about 6 months ago, I've been at this job about a year. And about 6 months ago, I was like, you know what? I've got all this HQ training, and I'm doing this now. I'm empowered. I'm an agent. I'm a 51%er. I'm going to turn this woman around. This is a challenge for me. So I decide that I'm going to start saying good morning to Gladys. So I get off the elevator, and I go up to Gladys, and I say, good morning, Gladys. Nothing. And I do this for weeks, and she literally ignores me. She looks down. One morning, get off the elevator, and I'm always with my son. I'm taking him to school. And she's sort of slumped over in the chair, just sort of staring at the floor. I'm not quite sure why. So I get closer to her, and I say, good morning, Gladys. And she looks up at me, and she goes, yeah, maybe for you. Progress. Progress with Gladys. All right, that was my opening, right? So I'm like, okay, all right. She opened her mouth. Dialogue. Remember, hospitality is about dialogue. So we got something going here. So weeks go by, and I'm still, every morning, I'm pounding away at this. She goes right back to her closed state, ignores me. One day, there with my son Christopher, and she had this package in her hand. I pass by, as I pass by her, she drops this package on the floor, and I just instinctively go, and I pick it up, hold it out to her, right? She sort of reaches her talon out to pick up the package, and I make eye contact with her. And I'm sort of holding on, sort of wondering what's going to happen now. And she looks at my son. And she says, what a beautiful son you have. And suddenly, the exterior just melts away. And she and Christopher just start this conversation. They're like, yeah, she's like, oh, you're on your way to school. And you know, Gladys can speak, apparently. She's very well... She's educated. She's noticed, apparently, that I take my son to school every morning. So she and Christopher are having this wonderful conversation with each other. So that was my way in. And ever since then, Gladys is fine. She's still mean and miserable to everyone else in the building, but my son was the way in to Gladys. So I'm telling you this to sort of help you understand that a culture of hospitality does not necessarily mean that you're working at a company of hundreds of people, and it's this big, huge initiative with leadership. A culture of hospitality can simply be a dialogue that you start with one person. And you can start that dialogue today, right? After this session, when you go back to work. So I want to thank you for your time. We've probably got just a few minutes for Q&A. I'm sure they'll get the hook out. We've got 5 minutes. Okay. Any questions? Yes. Do you want to step up to the mic? Or is... Okay.
A lot of where we deal with our front staff is volunteers who come kind of infrequently to work in the theater, so the training part of it is difficult.
It's challenging. Is there any training at all?
There's a little, but there's a little time. There's not a lot of time to train them.
Here's what I would say about that, and we come up with this situation within this community a lot when you're dealing with sort of transient employees. I was working with a college who had students who were volunteering. And what I would recommend is sort of rethinking that structure. I know these are volunteers, but rethinking what that commitment really is for those people. And if that commitment could include 15 minutes of hospitality training in addition to whatever else they need. So right now I'm talking about the technical piece and the hospitality piece. You would see a difference. The other thing that I would say too is to make sure that that house manager or whoever is corralling those volunteers is on board or has a vision for what this experience needs to look like at your organization. But it does require a dialogue Okay, it requires, and it can be quick. A great example in the restaurants, again, it's easy for me to say because these are Danny Meyer restaurants and this is so ingrained within the culture, but one of the things I love about restaurants are these lineups that they do every day before service. These are 10-minute meetings with the team before service begins. And in those lineups, there are technical pieces, 5 minutes on the technical pieces, new menu items, new wines, wine pairings, and then the other half is hitting on one aspect of hospitality, just one. And that can take 5 minutes. And again, this is about repetition, and if you've got a transient team, you're saying you've got different people coming in and out, but I would tell you that there's a personal enrichment to this too. So I would rethink the commitment of how you're structuring the commitment of these volunteers to incorporate some training. It doesn't mean they have to sit in a room for half a day. It could be 15 minutes, just to communicate a vision to them. Yeah.
Curious to know how you think artists play into the hospitality thing. Like with a chef will often walk the floor and check out his tables and whatnot. You don't really see. It's just different in theater, and it's a different model. I understand that, but I'm just kind of curious to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. The interesting thing for me about when I say audiences, and I don't think I define this, but I include artists, right, as part of your audience. You're welcoming artists into your home as well. And so while there's not always that direct interaction with the audiences, although sometimes there is, right? Like after a show, right? They're allowed to interact. So you could approach it from two different ways. Internally, there's sort of what you want that experience to be for the artist, right, as a guest in your home. So thinking about it that way. Are you talking about sort of their engagement with the audience at large and how you, does anyone have a model for that? When your artists interact with your audience, discussions come to mind? Yeah?
We have an ensemble of actors and we try to have them engage in non-acting roles.
Sorry, thank you.
I'm sorry, we have an ensemble of actors and we try wherever possible to get them to engage with the audience as not as actors, but as greeters or maybe a ticket taker or in those kind of ways. And the people like it because they like to meet the actors.
I love that model. Yeah.
We don't have an ensemble, but we do offer, especially for any post-show events, open bar to the actors to participate, which works amazingly well.
Always a good idea. Okay.
And I do have an ensemble.
Yes.
This is every other. And it is about the cultural, like for us as the artists participating and performing, we have a culture of being very gracious that people have come to, and honestly thankful that people have come to our home to the point that we gave out flowers to the audience at the last show because it was just such a fun experience to be with them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I mean, one other thought, because I don't think we quite answered your question, but I would really, I mean, if it's about what the expectation is, so if you're speaking to your artists and you say, okay, there's this model of interaction that we're going to have with our audiences, and this is the feeling that we're trying to create at our company. It's simply communicating that to those artists. Like, this is what we're going for. This is what we want the outcome to be for this interaction, versus just letting it happen. I mean, the more explicit you are about it, about what you want out of that exchange or what you're looking for, the more that's going to be in their mindset. Yeah.
Do I have to press anything? Okay. I'm very curious about your 51%. You guys must have, because it's obviously you have to build a team. Do you have specific interviewing techniques to identify those people?
Yeah.
Some quick tips on that would be fantastic.
Right. So this is, there are many, many books about this. This is behavioral-based interviewing. It is interviewing by asking questions to get people to tell stories. So for example, if I wanted to know about your work ethic, if that was a goal of mine, and I wanted you to talk about that, I wouldn't say, what's your name?
My name's
Abigail. Abigail. I wouldn't say, Abigail, do you have a strong work ethic? I wouldn't say that. No. I would ask you to tell me about a time that you were challenged at work, what the issues and problems were and how you overcame them. And by telling that story, I would pull out of you details and dots of information about how you problem solve and what your work ethic is. So again, not rocket science, but it's interesting, when you sit in interviews and the questions that people ask. So getting people to tell stories is how we map onto all of those 5 characteristics that I talked about. Okay, I'm done. One more.
Once you hire those people, do you have a way to help them realize their 51% if they're not necessarily displaying that?
Yes. Yes. I mean, here's what I'll leave you with. Culture is repetition, right? You have to just keep at this. You have to be relentless in your pursuit. So in the restaurants, again, every day there is that lineup meeting, right, that happens, reinforcing these concepts. In my business, there are 360-degree reviews, but it is really about constant feedback. We are a company of feedback every single day that reinforces these behaviors and characteristics. And it's just ingrained and built in. It's just something you need to be purposeful about. Okay? All right. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Thanks. Thank you.